A full-scale trade war is erupting between the world's two largest economies, and the global fallout could be severe. On the 9th of April, US President Donald Trump announced a staggering 104% tariff on all Chinese imports, which is an escalation that's being described as economic brinkmanship of the highest order. With Beijing vowing to fight to the end and no signs of either side backing down, analysts warn of significant short-term disruptions and long-term global realignments.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税，一味地进行极限施压，对这种霸道霸凌行径，中方坚决反对，绝不接受。美方如果真的想通过对话谈判解决问题，就应该拿出平等、尊重、互惠的态度。如果美方置两国和国际社会的利益于不顾，执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将奉陪到底。
Here's a breakdown of the 5 major impacts that's intensifying this trade war that could be unleashed. First off is a global supply chain earthquake. Trump's latest tariff salvo, which is a combination of earlier 10%, 20%, 34%, and now a proposed 50% duty, means Chinese imports into the US are about to get prohibitively expensive. From everyday goods such as shoes and clothing to strategic imports such as rare earth minerals and active pharmaceutical ingredients, a 104% tariff could virtually stop the flow of these products into the American market. And that's not just bad news to consumers who will face higher prices and inflation, it's also a major blow to global supply chains that rely on China for sourcing and assembly. American businesses may scramble to reroute production through third countries like Vietnam or Mexico, but replacing China's scale and efficiency isn't easy or quick. And then, of course, there's a rising inflation in the US and the domestic blowback. Americans are already feeling the pinch of inflation, and this tariff war will only add fuel to the fire. Many of the products targeted by the new tariffs are household necessities. The cost burden will hit lower-income Americans the hardest, making this more than just a geopolitical issue, it's a kitchen table one now. Trump claims that the United States is staking in almost $2 billion a day from tariffs, but economists argue that consumers are the ones footing the bill.
$2 billion. This isn't 35 million, that's peanuts. $2 billion a day. And then they say, gee, they don't know, this is only the enemy can be talking this way. In addition, we have a lot of countries coming to see us that want to make a deal, and we're doing things that nobody's ever even thought about. Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. Or today, it was announced that China is reducing its currency. Did you see that? Big. In other words, they're going to make up for it. They got every trick in the book. I'll tell you, they are great. You got to hand it to them. They're manipulating their currency today as an offset against the tariffs. Not supposed to do that. The game isn't supposed to be played that way. It makes it very hard for us. But in the end, it's not good because they have to buy oil. See, we don't need oil. We don't need oil and gas. We have more than any other country. They have to buy it. That's where it hurts them when they do that. It costs them twice as much. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will. They want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started.
Meanwhile, the possibility of retaliation tariffs from China could threaten key US export sectors like agriculture, just like they did during Trump's first term. The last round of Chinese tariffs led to job losses, particularly among the American farmers, forcing the government to roll out multi-billion-dollar bailouts. Tariffs of this scale amount to a trade embargo in everything but name. If this continues, the world could see a forced decoupling between the United States and China, which are the two deeply interconnected economies. China is the largest seller of goods globally, and the United States is the largest buyer. A breakup between these two would effectively split the world's trading system into two. In such a scenario, China may deepen its ties with other global players, leveraging trade with regions like the European Union, Africa, and Latin America to compensate. It could also double down on efforts to reduce its dependency on the American market by boosting domestic consumption. A bifurcated world may emerge, one camp aligned with the United States and the other orbiting China. And the real test of the power is who blinks first. On paper, the United States has more leverage. It imports far more from China than vice versa. But Beijing may have the endurance to outlast Washington. President Xi Jinping doesn't face elections or intense political opposition, unlike Trump back in the United States. China is already rolling out a large fiscal stimulus and can continue supporting its own economy. Meanwhile, Washington faces political and economic constraints. Trump may be forced to confront an increasingly resistant Federal Reserve that is reluctant to cut interest rates. And if domestic inflation rises further, public pressure on Trump to de-escalate will mount. Unlike China, the US doesn't have a coordinated industrial policy or a long-term alternative to Chinese manufacturing. So far, China hasn't backed down. It has already imposed its own retaliatory tariffs and vowed to counter the United States at every step. If this spins further, China may flood other markets like the European Union or India with cheaper goods, a process known as dumping. This could destabilize industries in these countries, drawing them into the conflict. India, for example, already faces challenges from cheap Chinese imports in sectors like electronics, machinery, and chemicals. An oversupply of Chinese goods could threaten local manufacturing. Likewise, the European Union may have to ramp up its trade defenses. Global trade tensions may ripple out from the United States and China axis to affect virtually every economy across the board. So what's the bottom line? Well, there's no easy way out. The last time Trump imposed tariffs on China, they didn't yield the employment gains he promised. Studies by economists at the MIT, Harvard, and the World Bank showed that while there was no job growth in sectors like steel, retaliatory tariffs from China did hurt the US farmers significantly. This time around, the stakes are higher. The world is watching closely. If neither Washington or Beijing offers an olive branch soon, this could mark the beginning of a long and painful realignment of the global economy, which is a post-American world in making, with China potentially stepping in to fill the void. So far, one thing is clear. Once tariffs go up, they are notoriously hard to bring down. As history has shown, economic wars are easy to start but difficult and costly to end.